Good day, Trader's Edge with high-tech trading analysis. I want to take just a brief minute to discuss some of the updates I've added to one of my indicators, my double-click zones. Now, this was originally designed just to be a simple little indicator where I could come to my chart and double-click and stick a zone on my chart, or stick a support and supply and demand area on my chart just by double-clicking. It's grown quite a bit past just being as simple as that, and I've added so many properties to it since the original video. I have to put out a new one. Okay, as you can see, we just double clicked on a chart. These are marked global. Anytime you draw a global zone, you're going to see a G inside the zone now. The only reason we're not seeing the one up here, I'm sure that it's just way up above price, but we're going to get rid of that. We're going to maximize our screen. We're going to open up some bars and we're going to take a look at how the drop down menu has changed. Now, it has changed and it hasn't. I just kind of rearranged things. It was already getting long, and now it was quite long, and I needed to organize it a little better. So we just moved some things around. New things that have been added: alert on break and an alert on touch. Now, what does that mean? Okay, so let's just make sure we're just drawing just a normal simple zone. Just draw a normal simple zone, right? And price is going to rise. If price touches this zone, we would get an alert. If price would breach the top of this, we would get an alert. If I did this on the bottom, price comes down and touches the top, we would get an alert if that was set. And if price breaches the bottom of the zone, we would also get an alert. Now, remember that anything that we have selected in our drop down here applies to any and all of the next zones that we draw. Now, if I come in here and I set alert on break on, and I come back to my chart, the zones that I previously drew on my chart are not going to have those alerts set. Now, if I were to draw another one here, we can see an A, and we can see that that alert is set. Now, I can't tell by this that it's on touch or on break. I just know that there's an alert set on that zone. If I select the zone by left clicking on it, and I left click on it, I get a whole separate user interface menu. Now, very similar to the one here, I think it might not have a couple that are in this, and this might have a couple that is not in here. This controls this zone only. So right now we've got an alert on. If we didn't want that alert, well, let's come down to this one, because then we can see what's happening over here. If I wanted to turn the alert on, we can see that it's turning the alert on just this zone that I have selected. So I can turn the alerts on and I can turn the alerts off, whether it be here for an individual zone or whether it be here for every zone that I draw. Now, the next little simple thing is if I left click on this, I get my drop down. If I middle click on this, all my zones disappeared. All I did was hide all the zones from my chart. So now if you can see that the icon has changed colors. If I middle click again, all my zones are back. Now, what I've added is if I right click this, I remove all the zones from my chart. Now, I didn't hide them, I removed them. Simple way to get, I mean, yes, we can left click on this and we can come down and we can remove our zones. I'll get to this. We can remove them through this menu, but now we can simply right click on the icon and everything on our chart goes away and we start anew. Now, in saying that, I probably need to bring up a property that goes along with this right click. In our indicator properties, if we look at our double click zones, okay, so just a few things have changed in the properties menu here. We've always been able to select our double click key. We select our zone type. We select whether we want to save them or not on exit. We have all our colors that we're selecting of whether the zone is above or below. Now I'm going through these really fast because I've covered them in depth in the first video. Please watch that first video if you're looking for more details on that. Here's a new section. So now we're saying alert on break. We give you the choice to select whatever sound file you have in your sound files folder. Now, if we unselect that, that will go away. So if I want an alert on touch or I want an alert on break, we can select separate sound files for each of those. Now, remember also that if we're changing properties here, we're only changing the properties that are going to go along with our drop down, which is going to change the properties that draw new zones, not old zones. So if the zone was already on your chart, anything that you change here isn't going to change the zone that's already drawn. Just like if we were to change the drop-down menu, it would only change the future zones that we draw. Okay, so we're going to turn all of that off. Now I took the beta off of global. If we select draw global, you saw that originally in the first part of the video. Whereas if I draw it on this chart, it ends up on all the other charts. I still kind of consider this a little in beta, but it's worked. I haven't had any issues in months, so I took the word off. Hotkeys was something that was added. If we select that to say use, all this does is allow you to use Alt 1, Alt 2, and Alt 3 to switch back and forth between the zone types. So, for instance, I've got these enabled now. Alt 1 is wick, Alt 2 is body, Alt 3 is bar. So if I say OK and I come over here, by default, I think I have mine set on wick. Now, if I double click on that and remove that, if I click Alt 3 and then double click again, I'm going to body. Now, if I click Alt 1 real quick, just a way, if you use hotkeys, there are some hotkeys that are now available to switch back and forth between the zone type that you want. Somebody was using one of those gamer mouses that's got all kinds of buttons on it and asked if I could incorporate that. Our target multiples. This is NinjaTrader stuff. NinjaTrader stuff. Hide text label. We want to check this if we want to remove this up here. Again, I'm going through this pretty quick. We were talking about the right click to remove all the draw objects off the screen. Here in the icon, where we select the colors that we want this to be when we middle click it to hide them all and to match our theme, there is now a checkbox down here that says RC remove all. If that checkbox is clicked, when we right click that, it's going to remove all the zones from all the instruments, from all of anything that you've looked at. If you don't have that checked, it's only going to remove the zones here from the instrument that we're looking at now, which happens to be NQ. Now, what does that mean? Well, what that means is, what you have to remember is that if I draw a zone here and I say save on exit, and now I change this same chart to ES, and I draw a zone on ES, whoops, and I want to save these on exit, and now I go back to NQ. Okay. Where's my zone? There's my zone on ES. There it is. Oh, and there's my zone there. Maybe I didn't have the save on exit check before I drew that zone. But as you can see, you can go to as many instruments as you want. Better order so I can find them. And it will remember the zones that you drew on whatever instrument you were on at the time. So now if I right-click this, do I want to delete the zone on just the NQ chart? Or do I want to delete the zones on any chart that I happen to look at? Now, speaking of that, if I go into the indicators properties, if you ever run into problems, if things aren't saving right, if you just need to start over, which is what you're going to end up having to do with this version because I've added so many properties. Once we add the indicator to the chart, we were here. That's going to hide our label. We were just talking about this right click. If this is on, that means anytime I right click this, I'm going to remove them from ES, from NQ, from whatever. If this is off, then it's only going to remove them when I right click from the chart that I was on. Okay, I'm going to keep going. There's your version number, and then here's what we were talking about, the cleanup. If I click this button and I click this button and I say okay, I'm going to remove all zones from all charts, from all workspaces, from everywhere. And I'm going to remove all of the templates that I've set up for my zones. If you're upgrading from version 29, this is going to be version 30 from 30 on. If you've owned this prior to version 30, you're going to have to do this the first time that you install the update. And reason being, there's all kinds of properties in the templates and the zones and the workspaces and everything that is updated that we need to start anew. So we're going to come all the way down to the bottom. We're going to click these two things and we're going to say okay. And so everything's going to be gone for everything, and we're just going to start anew. So now let's continue on. That covers about everything in the indicators properties. Remember, everything that was in this indicators properties is really, for the most part, not everything, but available in your drop-down menu. So all of this stuff is not even available in your properties, in the indicator property box. There's no reason to clutter a lot of that show stuff, and we want to do this dynamically, not have to open that damn box every time and have that clutter everything up. Okay, next added item, auto break zone. So what this means is if I draw a zone here, I can see a B in here now. A for alert, G for global, B. Now, those are always going to be labeled for us. We can right click on that, like we said, and turn off all of that. Oh, got to fix that. Turn off of those price labels up here. We can turn everything off but that letter. I might have to fix that. Okay, what that means, it's the same thing as if we had alert on break. If price comes up and price breaks this, this is going to auto break and no longer extend to the end, but stop at the bar that broke it. So, for instance, price is coming up and up and up and up and up. Let's say this price is going up instead of the zone coming down. Price is going up and up and up and up and up and up. It's almost going to break it. Pretty close. There it goes. Now our zone ends at the bar that broke it, and we can leave it sitting there. Price just broke out, and it will stay on your chart like this. Then we have draw global. Same thing we just saw. If I draw that on that chart, the reason that happened twice now, the reason why the first double click didn't work is because I had this open. I came down and double clicked. It didn't see the first click. The first click just gets rid of that menu. Then you have to double click. Okay, but I have this on global. Matter of fact, I have it on broken as well. You can see it on all three charts. Now, if I'm not going to drag this one down because it wouldn't work quite the same, but they're all in the same spot. They're all here. Once price breaks above that price, they're all going to no longer extend. So now, well, let's just remove that one and let's just draw one here, and let's just say that we did want to place that zone from like here to here, and I don't want it to extend anymore. Extend right has been added to the selection of the draw object itself. So if we left click that and don't extend that right, it will end at that bar now. And now, as long as I have save on exit, and the next time we'll just refresh NinjaTrader, the next time that we open our workspace or our chart, our zone is going to be where we left it. Now, at this point, we can come back and select it, and at another time, even right now, we want to come back and extend that right and say that this is our support area. We don't want it above here. We can do that. As a matter of fact, I can even come back at this point even and turn the alerts on or off. We still have the auto break on. So if I left click this, remember we originally drew this globally. We had that set here. I'm going to turn that off. Leave the global on. Let's turn the global off. We originally drew that last one globally. We can see that we have a G for global. I can come down here through this and say draw global, and it won't be global anymore. But if I come up here to this chart and right click on that, you're not even going to see the draw global. You're not going to see the draw global because it was drawn global from this chart over here, not this chart. You can't turn it off there, but you can turn it off here. Okay. So we talked about the alert on brake, the alert on touch, the auto brake, and the global. Alerts cannot be used with draw global or vice versa. What does that mean? It means if I have draw global on here and I want to draw these globally across all my charts, you're not going to be able to select the alerts. I'm not going to allow a dozen alerts to go off all at the same time on a bunch of different charts. If you're going to draw it global, the alerts don't work. The auto brake does. I can select that. No alerts. Now, vice versa. If I select an alert, I want either one, I can no longer draw that globally. Okay, next, lock zones. I did add an ignore user input. I had a customer request that wanted to not interface with the zones whatsoever after they were drawn on the chart. Meaning if I left click that, if I double click this, I've drawn a zone. He was accidentally clicking on these zones and selecting them when he wanted a right menu to place a bid, and it was interfering, and asked if I could make it so that you could not, that could not happen. But the drawback to this is you cannot interface with this. There's no right click menu to this. You cannot do anything with this. So we'll remove that. We'll get rid of that. The difference between that and lock zones is if we select lock zones, and we just can't move this. Right. So if you're accidentally clicking on them and moving them, but the click on them doesn't bother you because you want to be able to interface with the right click menu, you can select lock. Okay, this is all, show midpoint. What happened to the midpoint? Oh, what am I thinking? See, even I get confused now and then. That's only future, right? If I want to show and hide the midpoint immediately on that zone, I have to do it through the right click menu. But we can show tick offset. We can show our price labels. We can even now show dots only. So for dots, let's just say I want the price instead of the range. And now every time I click, whoops, I did that in the wrong menu. So we'll show dots only. So every time I click, all I'll have is a dot. Now, if I left click this, select that, come up and unselect that, I can extend that zone. I can now, because it's not global, set the alerts or the auto brake for that. Now, even though price has already gone up, gone down, done all of this, I put this on here. If I enable auto alert touch, alert brake, it will do it based on where it's at. What do I mean by that? Take a simple example and say that I was to put that, go dots only. No, wrong choice. Let's say that I put it here. Even though this is a supply, that normally you're going to draw above price. Not always. Sometimes it draws below price. If you set alert on touch and alert on brake, it's going to work just like if it was this zone. alert on touch, alert on break. Doesn't matter what type of zone it is. It's all going to be based on where price was when you drew it. Okay, next. Target multipliers. Okay, we used to remove our zones. I used to remove just the zone of the chart you were looking at through one here. Now I give you the option to clear just the chart zones, meaning just this chart zone, or remove all zones. I give you that option in the drop down here. Okay, I think that's almost it. Let's see. Right click, alerts, alert on break. We can extend left or right. I think a left was there before. Right is new. Okay. And then just like with the drawbar, if we wanted to load a template, looks like I don't have any templates here, but let's say that I were to go into this and I wanted to change this color to blue. Okay, and now let's say that I want this now to be my color for my upper global. Save, load. I don't have any templates. I'm going to save this. I'm going to say save, and I'm going to say global blue supply, because I'll just do, whatever. Right click on that. Next time that I apply that, I can right click, I can load, and that will just change that zone to whatever template I was using. So in that same template that I just saved would be just like coming into the draw object, setting all your properties here, coming down here to templates, coming down here to save, coming down here and doing all of this. Now all we do is we right click, we set what we want this to be. Once this is all set, I don't know if this would be true or not, but I suggest in that I would set everything that I wanted to have set for this as a template, and then I would left click the chart one time so that this was not selected, meaning let's just say I'll put a target 3 out there. Now I left click the chart so it's not selected. I'll select it again and say save, and I'm going to save it right over itself. It's going to tell me I already have this. Now I could have saved this as a new one, but I'll just say yes. So all I did was resave that template over itself. If I double click on this and now we come in and load that same template, it's that zone that I drew is going to be set up however I've set up all of my properties. I think that's it. Okay, one more thing I want to come back in and talk in after the fact. I wasn't planning on releasing this just yet, but I believe it's in a state that will be just fine. If we take a look at this chart, we see that we had a big spike up, comes down, bottoms out here, and breaks out from the top, congestion here. That was the holding point, right? Comes back, holds, breaks out. This is our support. What I've added is in the right click context menu of the draw object itself only, meaning it has nothing to do with the drop down here. But now we can go back to our zone. We can select it, right click in it. At the very top, there's an empty text box. You're going to want to keep your cursor over the box while you're typing up here. This is an area that we can now type a custom label for our zone. What do I mean by that? Let's just type it. Notice over here on the right, whatever we type in this box will now be labeled in our zone. We can use a tab key, tab, or we can use the enter key. Now, you can make as many lines as you want, but only one line, depending on the size of your zone, how big you're looking at, you know, only so many lines are going to fit on there aesthetically. But this is something that was not what I covered previously, and it's something I plan on adding to all of my custom drawing tools in my drawbar, and just thought I would add it to this as well. As always, guys, thanks for your time. Sorry this took so much time. Be safe in this crazy world.